Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. Today is the ninth day of January 2025. I'm sorry, 2026. I'm going to be reading again from the book called Kabbalah and Exodus, which was written by a gentleman named Zeb Ben Shimon uh, Halevi, who was a Kabbalist long ago, probably, I think it's in the 1930s, as well as I recollect. Uh, he wrote a book. This particular book was published by Shambhala Press out of Boulder, Colorado. So we're in chapter 7 tonight of this particular reading. And the title of the chapter is simply Moment of Decision in Exodus 3 and 4. So again, it's called Moment of Decision, Exodus chapter 3 and 4. And so far we have seen the processes of incarnation, early life, the dissatisfaction with natural pleasures and pains, and the attempt to escape into limbo, followed by contact with a spiritual mentor. This has led an individual to a arduous training, which has earned the merit of being able to reach a place in time wherein grace descends to give a deep glimpse of a cosmic view of reality. Such a moment of illumination cannot be easily forgotten or ignored. Nevertheless, because free will has been granted to mankind, a human being can accept or reject his or her destiny. Quote, and Moses hid his face, for he feared to look up unto God. End quote. Now, God spoke, saying that the cries of the Israelites had been heard, and how the divine had come down to deliver them and bring them up and out of Egypt into a land flowing with milk and honey. Yes, the land of the flowing milk and honey is in your head. Seeing internally, this passage is saying how the individual is to order and transform his body and psyche so as to permanently experience the spirit. Viewed externally, Moses is about to be given the highly responsible task of bringing a group of souls from a low state of being. So we've talked about this before. This is not a literal text, folks. The Bible is not a literal text. You've been taught that all your life, that it's historical and it's literal. So it's literal history is what we've been told. As I was a child, was told this many times. And that's why they have the idea when they say, oh, the earth's about 6,000 years old, you see. Their accounting that is to do with the Old Testament and their historical perspective and in the New Testament, you see. But it doesn't add up. It may add up in a literal terms, but then when you begin to read the Bible literally, you begin to see that God is a complete enemy of people who do not worship him. You see, God blows them away. He kills them. So you got an oxymoron issue here. What you have simply is, so what is God all about? In other words, if you're reading it literal, you're seeing a God who is jealous of everything that man does. Why would he be jealous? Why would God in his nature be jealous of mankind? After all, God created man. You see, you got a decision to make here. If you're going to continue to listen to these preachers and teach you this stuff, the literal interpretation of the Bible, they're wrong. They're totally wrong. They can't be right because they're literally saying that God disposes of people who do not worship him. We have a God who has to have his way. And yet we're told he also created us. Something's wrong here. It can't be either or, and it can't be both, you see. There's something wrong. And yet Christians themselves believe this. They go to church every weekend. They so-called worship God. But what are they doing? Did they get the righteousness of God? Or is it simply their righteousness? God warns people in the New Testament about self-righteousness. And what that means simply is that's what all Christians are. They have not met God at all. It's a group psychology issue here, folks, also. It's enormously brainwashing is taking place in the church, and it's been going on for over nearly 2,000 years. And most people don't see it. In fact, people who do reject Christianity is based upon what I'm saying. But then the problem is simply is they don't look at it. They're looking at it as a swaying way of saying it's literal. Well, you have to understand the Bible is not literal. It's metaphors. It's stating something that most people are not able to comprehend. Fortunately, I've been able to spend some time with Phil Langdon, who has had the ascension moment. In fact, he's the only one I know of has had it, you see, on this planet. There are metaphors in the Bible, you see. Those metaphors are these so-called characters we have. So Moses, and we have Aaron, we have Joseph and Jacob. All these people, are these real? No, they're not real. They're not real. That's what this little book has something to do with that. It tells you the meaning of each one of those names. It was done by mystery school teachers long ago. And mystery schools were destroyed, you see. There's no mystery schools anymore, folks. They destroyed also the Library of Alexandria. So people could now go back and say, here's the readings of such and such, their teachings. We know that the Catholic Church has these things. I'm sure they do in their vault somewhere covered up long ago. And they've gone elsewhere to block out, keep a man to be seduced in a trance state, not knowing who he is. So let's continue here. Seen internally, this passage is saying how the individual is to order and transform his body and psyche so as to permanently experience the Spirit. Viewed externally, Moses is about to be given the highly responsible task of bringing a group of souls from a low state of being into the highest most people can reach in one lifetime. The role he has been cast for is spelled out in this verse. Quote, "Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people." End quote. The task is offered, not forced, because it must be an act of free will. In response, the stunned Moses backs away. Quote, "Me and Kochi," end quote. "Who am I that I should go unto Pharaoh and that I should bring out the children of Israel from Egypt?" End quote. Moses cannot believe it. Is he that has been selected, that the divine is addressing him, that his level of development is sufficient even to be considered for the task? The reply is, in brackets, in the original Hebrew, Ki, K-E-E, Eye, Emcha, end quote. Because I am with you, end quote. There follows a debate between God and Moses on why he should and should not go. This debate is important because it sets out very clearly divine certainty and human doubt. Each time God puts forward a reason to accept, Moses opposes it. God argues gently but firmly, never demanding Moses to acquiesce in the face of divine might, because their relationship is one of love as well as fear. That is, Moses being at the place of the self. It is poised between the two outer columns on the central axis of knowledge. This is confirmed when Moses asks what divine name he should use. At first, the God name for the highest Sephirah of all on Jacob's ladder is used. This is, and it's pretty long here, folks, and just basically it's spelled EHEYEHASHEREHEYEH, or I am that I am, which defines the will of the absolute in the manifested universe. A few lines later, the God's name Yahweh is used as a more personal and merciful title for the children of Israel. This was to become the name by which God is remembered for all time. In individual terms, here is the divine making intimate contact with a human being. By this name, the person may call upon the absolute and bring all those parts of his psyche, represented by the children of Israel, into correct relationship with the divine. As God explains to a bewildered Moses the task before both of them, we are shown the possibility of conscious cooperation between God and man. Moses has the scenario of the Exodus set out before him because all except the details are already ordained. Thus, the resistance of Pharaoh is anticipated, as are the plagues and the departure from Egypt, with the Israelites loaded down with gifts from the Egyptians, that is, the Egyptian population. The reason for this is planning is cosmic, in that the historical context of the event will demonstrate to many unborn generates, that is, generations, the power of the divine will if God chooses to intervene in the affairs of mankind. It was this purpose that Israel was selected to be given the law and live out a natural destiny. The same principle applies on the individual level, in that a spiritual person's life is often subject to both good or bad fortune, in order to show others how to respond to fate according to inner values, because such people are always watched with great interest to see if they live up to their principles. This explains why many saintly individuals have suffered so much in conditions they apparently did not deserve, and why they fall harder when they disobey the rules. To help convince Moses and convert the Israelites, disbelief in his authority, the divine demonstrated the miracle of changing Moses' rod into a serpent and turning the hand of Moses' leprosy. Kabbalastically, this is divine will applying creative principles to overrule the laws of the world of form and matter. However, while Moses was deeply impressed, he still resisted the task set, saying he was not eloquent. This problem was solved by the bringing into the situation of Aaron, who is Moses' brother, would complement his work. Here we begin to see how Moses takes up his traditional Kabbalistic position on the Nezah, N-E-Z-A-H, of the psychological tree. See, with Aaron at the Hod, H-O-D. These are the roles of prophecy and priesthoods manifesting at the level of ordinary man. Moses eventually accepts the mission, but his role as the instrument of God's will was not taken with enthusiasm. This reluctance to perform one's destiny is very familiar to many who have reached this spiritual point. Life up to this point is very interesting. One studies the theory of esoteric teachings. Esoteric means mystery. Exoteric is outward, esoteric is inward. Teachings and perform in practices. Everything is going well in the slow growth process that can be accommodated. Certainly, there are occasional crises, but these are usually surmounted with help from one's instructor. Suddenly, the instructor cannot help anymore. We are faced with the I and thou confrontation and the recognition of our purpose in existence. Yeah, we have a purpose here. All of us do. We know that in the spirit world before we come into the lower world. But once we come here, we forget, you see. Such a moment happened to Moses at the burning bush, and he reluctantly turned his face upward. Face towards the lower worlds where his work awaited him. For the individual at this point, such a state is familiar because no one, we are told, ever believes he is ready when called to take up his destiny. And so that is the end of chapter 7 tonight. Very short chapter. I have already mentioned this particular book here. This is by the same author. I have also read the same author with psychology and Kabbalah. I should say it's Kabbalah and psychology, either way. He's written that book. He's written many books, this guy is. So thank you for being here. I hope that you sense something different about what we're supposed to be about and what our purpose here. It's important for you to understand that. Okay, we will talk to you soon. Thank you for listening, and you have a good night and take care.